Senate Bill 575, which passed yesterday at about 3:30, vote 30 to 19 in favor. I was outside the Senate chambers when they voted yesterday. Union representatives may only negotiate salaries or wages, salary, and wage-related fringe benefits. Wage-related fringe benefits have not been fully determined or defined. In the grievance process, you can only grieve wages, salaries, and wage-related fringe benefits. To a non-teacher, that may not seem like a lot. To a teacher, you understand we have significant language contracts that cover a wide range of things, that many of which are good for students. Class size is a student issue as well as a teacher issue. It's not just a teacher issue. But there are many things in those contracts. This would strip away every part of a master contract that we have now except salary, wages, and wage-related benefits, and we have yet to get a definition of what that is. No contract may have a provision that allows a local president to have leave time, then once the term of office is completed to have a guaranteed right to come back into the bargaining unit as a teacher or as an administrator. The teacher would lose all seniority. The teacher leader would be considered a temporary teacher. This also applies to administrator who is moved from his or her position. It's very easy to think, well, duh, that makes sense. That's probably what it ought to be. If you followed one of these local teacher presidents around for a day, you'd understand why this is a problem. Even in a smaller local, and Logansport's a small local compared to a Fort Wayne or an IPS, the local president's job in most cases is a problem solver. The superintendent and the local president are a team, and they work very, very close together on a very regular basis. And I'm sure Mr. Bevins and all the local presidents, any other superintendent here will agree, it's a go-to person. The soup knows who to go to, the local president knows who to go to, and they solve a myriad of problems. But to do so, it takes a lot of time. In a local this size, the teachers can handle that job and still do their classroom duties. In an IPS, a Fort Wayne, a South Bend, they can't do it. There's too many things to do. So they take release time. The local association pays their dues, not the school corporation. The local association pays all of their dues, their salary, excuse me. And then the school corporation hires a substitute teacher, a replacement for that year or two or whatever, and life goes on. So this is significant for teacher associations and administrators, I believe. Eliminates daily hours and number of days worked. Teachers would have to attend meetings and work whenever their supervisor directs them to do so, or be subject to discipline, including dismissal. I'm going to tell you, they attend all those meetings now, and they work lots and lots and lots of hours already. But this says that the principal can walk in the door and say, you will stay till 6 tonight. You'll stay till 7 tomorrow night. And by the way, I need you to come in Saturday and sell popcorn at the volleyball game. You will be in that language, and that will employ, and the teacher would simply have to say, yes, sir, I'll be there, or be fired. Mandatory 180 student days and 185 teacher days with no pay for the additional days. This will vary in its significance from school to school. I have some schools with as few as 182 days in their contract. We have some with as many as 187. I think Logansport is right at 185, am I right? Okay, so this would probably not have a significant effect in the number of days, but it takes away the 5 days being able to be determined through collective bargaining as to how they're going to be used, whether it's professional development, records day, or whatever. That would be dictated by the school corporation exclusively. The former recognized bargaining aid is no longer an exclusive rep. Teachers can form their own groups, and multiple union representatives can be recognized by the board. Currently, the way the law reads in Public Law 217, which was passed, by the way, a bargaining law in 1973, it says that when the teachers vote in the union, whichever one they want, that organization then serves as the exclusive rep. They technically represent all the teachers, whether they're a member of the association or not, doesn't matter. They bargain on behalf of all of them. They enforce contract language on behalf of all of them, members or not, doesn't matter. They're titled the exclusive rep. What this law will do is take away that label and allow multiple groups to exist at the same time, and they would be represented at the bargaining table in proportion to the number of members that they have. So now the superintendent is faced with a whole panel of people across the table, each representing a different interest, And their ability to solve problems gets very complicated then, because now they have a variety of people with different issues representing different groups, and I think it will greatly complicate the process that we've come to know. Reduction in force would be based on performance, not solely on the basis of seniority. There would be no mandatory deadline for RIF notices. This has been a hot issue. The governor and Tony Bennett have both gone on record numerous times saying this is so horrible that a really good young teacher gets laid off. Let me give you my personal reflection on why the system exists that we have today. When the unfortunate situation arises that someone has to be laid off, that's something that the school corporation didn't create that problem. The teachers didn't create it. It's usually from downtown and it's a money issue, but somebody has to go. There is no good way to do that. There is no right way or wrong way. There just simply isn't, okay? It's a matter of opinion. My belief is that this system evolved over time for several reasons. One is the younger, least experienced, and lowest paid employees are the most mobile. If you're 2 years or 3 years on a salary schedule, you can move to the county school, you can move to the next town down the road, and very likely find a job. If you're at 25 years and a master's degree, you will not work as a teacher. If you leave your school corporation, you are very unlikely to ever work again as a teacher because you're too expensive. It just simply makes sense from that standpoint. Also, the roots aren't so deep. Most of the younger employees are not immediately going to buy homes when they're in those communities. They haven't established themselves. They can leave that community with less financial and family disastrous results than a senior teacher who has a family there and spouses working and so forth. Is it good for anybody? No, but it does make some sense if you think about it. And I would challenge anybody to tell me what's a fairer way and a system that's going to work better. The governor says he has a better way, but I don't think I agree with that. School calendar, dismissal procedures, and criteria and evaluation procedures and the criteria cannot be in the contract for those entered into following June 30, 2001. So the teachers, in a lot of cases, teachers don't have school calendar in the contract anyway, by the way. They don't bargain it. Most of them just discuss it, but the school boards can vote the calendars the way they want. I only know of one school of the 42 that I've represented that can actually bargain calendar, and that's North White. Dismissal procedures and the criteria for the evaluation, all that stuff is gone for teachers. They have no input into that, and you can't even have it in your contract. And then that's another thing. Much of this legislation not only says you don't have to do this anymore, then it says, oh, and by the way, if you do, it's illegal. So if you take a school corporation where the administration is very comfortable with their teachers and are willing to enter into those agreements with their teachers, they can't do it because it'll be against the law. Contract negotiations impasse after 60 days of bargaining. So you're at the bargaining table and you go 60 days and you then automatically have to go to impasse. The Indiana Education Employment Relations Board will appoint an arbitrator, and he will come, and until that arbitration process is complete, you remain on status quo contract. Now, Randy Head, Senator Head, is, I believe, responsible for getting this status quo language as an amendment into this bill. Before the amendment, it said if your contract expires, 30 days after it expires, the school board will invoke one of its previous proposals, and that's the contract. And take a brain surgeon to figure out if I'm a school board member. I just go home and sit for 31 days and come back and say, oh, by the way, here's your contract. But the governor said, oh, no, you still have collective bargaining. We're not repealing collective bargaining. But he was, okay, because he took away the process of collective bargaining because he allowed one side to call the shots if they just sat out for 30 days. But Randy Head, I do want you to thank Randy when you talk to him. I'm pretty sure he was behind that. This has to have at least one public hearing. Once you go to impasse, the arbitrator will have a public hearing and both sides will be able to publicly discuss and explain the issues and let the community hear about it. But you can have no more than 5 private hearings and then 5 days to reach an agreement, then the arbitrator renders a binding decision. I believe Randy Head's suggestion originally was that there would be 3 local judges, and each side strikes one, and the one that was left would be your arbitrator. But the bill, the way it reads now, would be an ERB appointed arbitrator. The length of a contract may not extend beyond the state budget biennium, 2 years maximum. We have schools that bargain 5, 6, 7-year contracts all the time just because they're comfortable doing so, that they're happy with the language, no need to change it, and they don't have to waste time going back to the bargaining table because it takes a lot of time, but that would no longer happen. Temporary teacher, substitute teacher is no longer paid full teacher pay after the 16th day of the work. If a substitute teacher now goes into the school to sub for somebody who's ill long-term, on their 16th day, 16th work day, they go to teach full teacher's salary instead of sub pay because they're considered a long-term sub. This would change that, and they would no longer do that. They simply would be just at sub pay for the same, for whatever term it would be. It could be for a whole semester or even a whole year, I guess, if you're covering a maternity leave. I question the quality of the people who will do that. If they will go someplace where they can make more money because they can't afford to sub full-time in most cases if they're a licensed teacher. Any teacher who is on a grant that has a limit will be considered on a temporary contract. The temporary contracts expire when the grant is completed. Title teachers and any other teacher whose salary is being paid through grants may be put on a temporary contract. Very significant. You have senior, experienced teachers who have elected to move into Title I programs because of their skill levels and tackle some of the most difficult students to teach. They will not stay there because those contracts would become temporary. And temporary means you have no expectation of a job the next year unless they come to you and renew it. They can simply let it run out with no action and you have no job. The senior teachers who have years experience in the school corporation are not going to stay in those title programs. They're all going to go back to the general ed classes and then you'll have your least experienced, lowest seniority people doing your hardest to teach students.